One of my favorite students still is, named Brian. He was an Episcopalian, so he was up for enlightenment. But he still had no idea what to expect, and so of course he was uncomfortable. On the Tuesday evening that we attended a public lecture at Drepung Loseling Tibetan Buddhist Monastery in Atlanta, Brian decided he wanted to try sitting on a zafu for the entire hour instead of on a folding chair with people my age. So while the other students found their zones of safety, Brian chose plump black cushion in the third row on the right, while I settled into a folding chair a couple of rows behind him. We did stand with everyone else when the teacher came in the room, and then we sat back down as he fiddled with a lapel mic on his crimson robe. He was a Tibetan monk who looked every bit the part, sitting cross-legged at a low teaching table in front of an altar populated by a great many Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, gurus, and Rinpoches. First, he led the regular crowd on that Tuesday night in a chant that they all knew by heart. Then he invited us to spend 5 minutes in silent meditation before he began his talk, which was titled, Cultivating Happiness. I tried not to look around the Dharma hall to see how the other students were doing, but Brian was right in front of me, so it was impossible to miss how much effort he was putting into sitting straight and holding still without falling asleep, because college students are always tired, and college teachers are too. So I closed my eyes until the teacher cleared his throat to let us know the quiet time was up. He had to clear his throat a couple of times before he could get a full sentence out without croaking. I don't know whether it was the pollen or all that chanting. Then he had to move his microphone around a little bit when some people in the back of the room kept saying, "Can't hear, can't hear." Then after taking a sip of hot tea someone had placed in front of him, he finally got down to business. Had we ever noticed, he said, how our unhappiness with not being in a relationship quickly turned into our unhappiness with the relationship we had just entered? Had we ever noticed how soon our unhappiness with not having a job turned into our unhappiness with the job we just found? In no more than 4 sentences, he'd made his point. Our happiness is not dependent on our circumstances, which are always changing. Tapping his temple with the fingers of his right hand, he told us that our unhappiness is a product of our own minds as we persist in locating the problem out there instead of in here. While we spin our wheels trying to control things beyond our control, we ignore the one thing within our power to change, which is the way we see things and the compassion we're able to offer. When the monk took another sip of tea, Brian craned his head around so I could see his face, eyes wide, eyebrows up, mouthing his words really big so I would understand. And what he said is, "This is just about life." Making his eyes wider and wiggling his eyebrows a few times. This is just about life. At the end of the hour, the teacher wrapped up his talk with another brief period of meditation, and later, when I read Brian's field trip report, I learned more about his experience on the zafu, including what happened during the last meditation period. He said it was his first attempt at meditation, so he could hardly believe it when he felt a deep warmth coming up his left leg straight toward his heart. First time, 10 minutes in, and he was being given a taste of enlightenment. Then he opened his eyes and saw the person next to him had spilled her coffee. Which was wicking up the left leg of his jeans. So I saved his report, along with one written by a young man who had been much more concerned about going to the monastery. Here's what he wrote afterwards. "There may have been some rituals and ceremonies that I was not sure I wanted to take part in, but when we arrived, it was different." To his surprise, he said, he was able to clear his mind during the meditation periods, reaching a place of calm that he had never reached before. He said, "The whole experience made me think about changing my perspective on what's going on in my life. Not about changing my religion, but about changing the way I look at things. This may be what we've been learning in class about different worldviews. But I did not understand the concept until I saw it firsthand at the monastery."